Hi, my name is Israel Santana, but you can call me Izzy, and on this video I'll be showcasing the roadmap that I took in order to learn full stack development in 6 months. Here I will be sharing my study schedule, my resources, my motivations and tips, my struggles, and everything that I've learned so far in this process in the past 6 months. Something that I want to let you know in advance is that if you are expecting a heavily edited video, this is not the video. I'm just here to showcase what I did in order to learn the different technologies that I learned in the past 6 months. So, if this is something that you're interested in, let's get started. So before we even talk about coding and resources, the first thing that I want to talk about is the importance of setting a study schedule. So from the very beginning, I knew that if I really wanted to commit to this and really take this seriously, I really needed to set up a schedule. And the importance of a schedule, even though it sounds very easy and to the point, is that it creates a routine. And once you have a routine, it becomes like it's autopilot. So what I decided to do was to study Monday through Friday. I do not study on weekends, but I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So it's Monday through Friday from 6:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Now, I go to the gym 3 times a week. So for the days that I do go to the gym, instead of 4 p.m., I do 3 p.m. But other than that, my schedule is pretty much the same every day. So what I do is I take a lunch break at 12:30 and it finishes at 1 p.m. and then I go back to studying. So one of the main goals that I have for this video is to be completely honest with you. So here's the thing. I know that some of you might be thinking, wow, from 6:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. and this guy stays focused this entire time? He must be a genius. And I'm here to tell you that I'm human just like you. I'm not a robot. Some days are better than others. Some days I struggle to remain focused. Some days I'm able to stay more locked in than others. But the important thing is I show up every day. And what that has done is, for the last 6 months, I've seen progress in my learning. There's so many things that I still need to learn. But the fact that I've been showing up every day, it helps. So remember, hard work beats talent when talent does not work hard. It doesn't matter how talented you are, but if you show up every day, I'm telling you, little by little, you'll see the progress. Now, I do struggle sometimes to remain focused. And there are 2 things that I've done to make sure that I remain as focused as possible. So the first thing that I did was to literally get rid of my phone. I noticed that when I first started, I would end up scrolling just like many of you do. So what I decided to do was, you know what? Since the phone is becoming an issue, I decided to, instead of having my phone around, I literally put my phone across the room. So if I really need the phone, I literally have to get up my chair and go all the way to find the phone on the other side. So in order to still stay in touch in case somebody texts me or an important email comes in, what I do, I keep my Apple Watch with me. So I cannot scroll here, and it only gives me the messages, the emails, so only the important stuff. So that was the first thing I did. I got rid of my phone by doing something as simple as putting it on the other end of the room. So just like software engineering, when you fix something, then something else breaks. So I was able to deal with the situation with the phone by putting it away and keeping my watch with me. But the other issue that I came across was that I started scrolling a lot in my computer. So I will go on YouTube, and then I will go on Twitter, or I will read an article, and I was like, man, this is kind of defeating the purpose. So I need to find something to counter this, because I can't just put the monitor away. I need it to study. So what I did was I started using the Pomodoro method, and it made an incredible difference immediately in my studying. And it was very simple. So I have a set timer, which is the one that is given by Windows. And as you can see, I have 3 different timers: 25 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And the way that it works is I study for 25-minute increments. And when it finishes, I take a 5-minute break. And when I finish the 5-minute break, I go back and study 25 more minutes. And when I finish, I then take a 10-minute break. And then when I finish, I go back here. And the cool thing about this application is that I can do this, right? Play. I place it right on the screen. And then the benefit of this is it doesn't matter what I open, it will always remain there. So even when I'm coding, I'm always seeing it. So the benefit of this is I'm always looking at this clock and understanding that, hey, you cannot do nothing but study until this finishes. So this requires a lot of self-discipline, and I promise you, if you do this, it's going to help. So I know that there's a question that you're probably asking yourself, and is, Israel, how are you able to financially support yourself? You study Monday through Friday from 6:30 to 4 p.m. How are you able to fund this? And like I told you from the beginning of the video, I'm an open book, and I'll be honest with you. I don't like to share my personal life, but for the sake of the video, I will. So the reason that I'm able to study is because of my wife. Let me take you guys back 3 years. 3 years ago, my wife got into this program to become a physician assistant. And because the program was so intense, she couldn't work. So I told her, baby, this is something that you want to do and is your dream. I'm going to take care of the bills for the entire journey until you become a physician assistant and get a job. And the promise that we made to each other was, once she finished the program and found a job as a PA, then I was going to quit my job and focus on becoming a software engineer in order to get a better paying job. That way we can improve our quality of life. So that's what it was. She was in that program for 3 years, and I held my word like a man, and I told her, don't worry about the bills, I got you. And that's what I did for 3 years. I made sure the bills were paid, everything got taken care of, and the moment that she finished her program, she told me immediately, baby, you did your part of the deal, now it's my turn. Now you can quit your job and focus on becoming a software engineer. So that's the answer. If no, I'm not working, but the reason I'm able to do it is because of my wife and that promise that we made to each other. So now let's talk about the resources that I've used in the past 6 months to learn full stack development. First, you can see that I'm using GitHub. And GitHub basically is the journal for software engineers. Here you are able to share basic information about yourself, your details and contact information. You're able to upload your projects with the code, which is good for potential employers, friends, and colleagues, so they can see what you're working on. And this way, you're able to share the things you're building. Currently, my tech stack, meaning the different technologies that I use in order to create applications, are Git, VS Code, React, Tailwind, Node, Express, and Postgres. So for a full stack application to be a full stack application, it needs 3 things. It needs a front end, a server, and a database. The moment you put those 3 things together, that makes an application full stack. So here's the fun fact. In the past 6 months, 99.9% of the resources that I've used to learn my current tech stack have been completely free from YouTube tutorials. I only purchased one Udemy course, which was less than $20, and I will show it to you later. But basically what I did was every tutorial that I've taken, I added it into a playlist that I have here on the screen, and everything that you see here, I went over all of them. So my entire tech stack is here, and the place that I learned it was through these videos. So if you see it here, it's because I went over it. And again, everything that I've learned so far is through these tutorials, and it's been completely free. So the first thing that I did was learn basic HTML and CSS, and then I took a course, which is this one, for JavaScript. And I built different projects with this one, but I felt that before I went to learn frameworks, I wanted to get a better understanding of how JavaScript worked. So what I did was I purchased this course, which is called 50 Projects in 50 Days. And as you can tell, it has over 50 projects. And it's just basic vanilla JavaScript projects. But what it did was it really helped me by building all these projects. It helped me get comfortable with using my code editor. It made me understand how CSS worked, how you use JavaScript to manipulate the DOM, and it just gave me a really solid foundation on how to create simple applications before going to the next step. So I truly recommend this. It was very helpful. And yes, I went over every video, every tutorial, and you can see it here on my my GitHub. I went over all the projects and I did all of them. And it really helped solidify the basics and fundamentals of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So by the time I moved into React, I already had an idea on how to create an application. So even after completing the course and having like 50 JavaScript projects under my belt, I still felt that I was directionless. I didn't know what to do next. I knew that I needed to start working on my own personal project because that's the way to learn. But I just needed some guidance on what to do next. And since I had nobody in my network, I had to figure out, okay, I need a mentor. And one of the things that I did was I follow multiple YouTubers, but there's this one in particular who's a software engineer, and his name is Dorian. And he actually offers mentoring sessions. And that's when I decided to reach out to him and book a session. We have had multiple sessions by now. We even had one yesterday. And even from the first one, it was game changing because he gave me actionable steps and direction, because that's what I need. I needed direction. And he told me that, okay, now that you're done with this course, now you need to start learning frameworks. And you have to start building your own projects, because that's the only way that you are going to learn. And not only that, he told me as well, Israel, now what you have to do as well, not only learn the framework and start working on your first project, you have to meet people, because if you don't have anyone in your network, I think it's time for you to start going to coding meetups, because that way you start building relationships, friendships within the industry, and you never know where they can take you and who you are going to meet in the process. And I'm very thankful that I followed his advice, because it was very game changing. And I will tell you more about coding meetups in a couple minutes. So after finishing my session with Dorian, I came out with three goals: learn React, start thinking about my project so I can create my first project, and third, finding a coding meetup. And when I first started learning React, the crash course that I took was this one, React Crash Course 2024. So in the process of taking that tutorial, I really started thinking about how and what that first project was going to be. And that's when I became very ambitious. And I made the decision that my first application, my first project, was going to be a full stack application. And I didn't care how long it was going to take me, how difficult it was going to be. And I was going to learn every tool needed in order to make that happen. And that's what I did. When I finished the crash course and I began working on my personal project, I made the decision of working on something that I was interested in. And what I did was, for my project, every time I needed something, whether it was for the front end, I would just go, learn it, and then I would come back to my project and implement it. And then when I got to the point that I needed a server, I learned Node and Express, learned that, and then I implemented it into my project. The same way with the database. Once my project needed a database, guess what I did? I went ahead, took a crash course for the database, learned it, that way I could implement it into my project. It really took 3 months in order for me to complete my first project, but I was very proud that I was able to achieve that goal of creating as my first project a full stack application. And I just recently completed it. And don't worry, I'll show it to you later. Here's the thing. In the process of me learning React, Node, Express, and Postgres, and working on the application, remember, I'm learning all these new technologies. It was very frustrating. It was very difficult because I was new to all of this. So what I did to help me guide me in the process, I used Gemini. Some people use ChatGPT, some people use other AIs, but the one that I use is Gemini. Now, I know probably what you're thinking, but hey, if you're using AI to learn how to code, are you really learning? And that's the misconception so many people have. There's two ways that you can use AI. You can either have coded for you and then just copy and paste and not learn, or really ask specific questions of topics so you can learn them so you can implement it into your project, which is what I did. Anytime there was a topic or something that I was not sure about, I would go and ask Gemini. And I use Gemini more as a mentor than anything else. So again, if you're using these tools, really make sure that whatever code, whatever topics that you don't understand, ask. And make sure you understand it before applying into your project. You don't want to be that type of person that you ask a question about their own project and they have no idea. So what I did was, every step of the way, every question that I asked Gemini, I made sure to understand and then implement what I was learning into my project. And that really made a difference. So that's how I was using Gemini and AI. So before we move on to the next topic, I want to give you an advice and share a tip that might help you, that helps me. The first, let's talk about the advice. I just showed you multiple tutorials. Each of them I used and they were very helpful. But the approach to taking these tutorials is very simple. I read a quote that said, if a tutorial is 2 hours long and you finished it in 2 hours, you probably didn't learn anything. So my advice is, please take your time. There's nobody timing you. There's not a reason why you have to finish a tutorial that is 2 hours long in 2 hours or finish it in 30 minutes. Make sure that you really understand the material before you're moving on to the next topic, because the thing about software engineering, and you will see and you will learn, and even people watching this video with experience, you'll see that everything is connected with one another. So if you try to miss a beat, try to skip, you will have issues. For example, before learning React, you have to have an understanding of JavaScript. If you try to learn JavaScript as you go with React, most likely you will get confused. So don't skip, do your best, take your time, it's okay. You got this. But you don't have to, you're not racing with nobody else. The competition is with yourself. Try to be better tomorrow than you were yesterday. So that's my advice when it comes to tutorials. So now here comes the tip. When I first started studying, I tried to use music to help myself focus, but it ended up being a mistake because music with lyrics end up making you more distracted because you're either thinking about the lyric. It's just difficult to focus. So I remember telling this to my wife and she told me about lo-fi music. And I was like, lo-fi? She said, yeah, it's just like instrumentals. And if you listen to them, they actually help you focus. And actually, I started using lo-fi music and I ended up becoming a fan. And now anytime I'm studying, lo-fi music is what I'm playing. And it's so useful. Let me share with you, I use Apple Music. This is the current creator that I listen to. It's called Lo-Fi Girl. This person has different stations, I could say, but the one that I like the most is Synthwave. I really enjoy it. The music is very harmonizing and it really helps me to focus when I'm studying. They also have an account on YouTube, so if you don't have Apple Music, maybe they have it on Spotify, I'm not sure. They probably do. But you can also check on YouTube. They have it 100% and they actually always have a playlist of lo-fi music, and there's actually always people connected and you can actually comment and speak with people. But I don't use the YouTube, I just use Apple Music. So I hope this little tip helps you. So now let's talk about coding meetups. So after I was already on a roll studying, learning a new framework, working on my first personal project and going to the gym, it was the moment for me to start looking for a community, since like I told you earlier, I had nobody in tech. So lucky for me, I live in New York City, which is a big hub when it comes to tech. So I was able to come across this coding meetup, which is called Code and Coffee. So the great thing about this group is that they have multiple meetups all over the country. So as of right now, they have around 30 cities. And each of them, they are run by different individuals, but they also have different schedules. So some of them meet up every 2 weeks. Some of them are monthly. The one that I go to, which is in New York City, we actually meet up every 2 Sundays from 2 to 5 p.m. And the best part of this is that it's completely free. So here's the thing. I cannot speak for every meetup in the city or in the country because I haven't gone to all of them. I can only speak to you about this one. And this is where I can tell you about Code and Coffee. And is that ever since the first time I went there back in March, I've received nothing but support and gotten nothing but good experiences out of it. I've gone to meet multiple people from different fields, data scientists, software engineers, product managers, people who just graduated from boot camps. And my experience so far has been nothing but great. So my advice for anyone who's just starting to code, or even if you're already in the industry, is to do your best to find a local meetup, whether it's in your city, your town, maybe an event, and you'll see the benefits of it. I think it's such a great idea to network and get to know people, because you never know where these relationships can take you. And here's the thing, it's not even necessarily trying to get something out of a networking opportunity. I think it's cool to be able to go to a place with people that are interested in the same things as you. So it's no different than a Comic-Con. You get to go to these events and you get to meet people who probably like anime and comics and things of that nature. So it's the same thing with coding meetups. You get to go to an event where people are doing either the same or similar things to whatever you are doing. So that's my advice. Find a coding meetup. So now let's talk a little bit about my first personal project. The project that I mentioned that I decided to make completely full stack. So the best way to learn how to code is through coding. Even though tutorials are good to show basics and fundamentals, at the end of the day, you have to get your hands dirty, and the best way to do it is by building projects. Something that makes this process a little bit easier is if you build something that you actually like, enjoy, or you are passionate about. In this case, for my first project, I decided to do something related to my favorite car brand, which is Nissan. I love Nissan, and I actually own one myself. So my first application, I decided to make a tribute to their brand. I'm not going to go over all the features of the application, but don't worry, if you really want to see a full demonstration of the project, I already made a video showcasing the project, and here I go into details with all the features that the application has to offer. And as you can see, I did this project using React, Tailwind, Node, Express, Postgres, and Stripe. So basically the user can go in, see different vehicles and its details, and if they see a vehicle that they like, they can actually go and make a simulated payment. And if you really want to see the code, I have the repo. The project is called Nissan Experience, and here it has all the source code, everything you need to set it up. I had a README as well, so you can have an idea on what the project entails and what it goes into it. So it has everything that you need in order to get the project going. So you can clone it, do whatever you want with it, but this is the project that I decided to make. So just like the name of the project, Nissan Experience, creating this project from scratch was an experience. And it was very challenging and very humbling, because my ambition of creating a full stack application as my first project, I knew it was not going to be easy, and it wasn't. It took me 3 months to complete. But even reading documentation and watching tutorials, I still struggled, like setting up my Git bash, how to make sure my React components made sense, how to implement Tailwind into it, how React Router works, what is use state and what is use effect, how to connect my database, how to create a server. All of these things, I have to learn them in the process. And then in addition to how to make sure you have proper code, how to make sure to write comments to make sure another person comes and reads your code and he or she has an idea on what it does. I had to learn about proper folder structure. Like, you can't just have folders all over the place. Being organized, making sure that even a file name or a folder name has a purpose and makes things easier for whoever reads it to better have an understanding of your project. How to protect API keys. I had no idea of any of that. So these are things that I had to learn in the process. What is the importance of getignore and that env process for the environments, how to do an example of an environment. Like, all of these things I had no idea. But guess what? I learned it in the process, and it made me a better developer at the end. So I was very proud at the end product of this project, because man, I was able to build something from scratch. It's crazy to think at one point, like, this application was a blank page, and little by little, brick by brick, I was able to create something that I'm very proud to call my first project. And this project itself, forever, it will always be my baby because it was the first one that I ever made. So my recommendation to you, even if it's ambitious or if it sounds difficult, creating a full stack application, it will be worthwhile and you will learn so much in the process. Don't worry, it's going to take time, it's going to be frustrating. Especially when I was trying to connect my database and connecting Stripe into my application, those were some of the most frustrating days on the entire process. But you know what? I didn't give up, and at the end, it paid off. So if you are planning to make a full stack application, go for it. You'll learn so much from it. So now I want to talk about my challenges so far in this process. And one of them that was very difficult for me to overcome was the feeling of feeling guilty. As I said earlier in the video, I don't study Saturdays and Sundays. And for me at the beginning, it was very difficult to accept that reality because I felt that by not studying 7 days a week, I was wasting time or hindering any progress that I could make. And I remember having this anxiety every time I didn't study Saturdays and Sundays. So I went to Code and Coffee, and in one of the meetups, I met a software engineer, and I told him how I felt. And he told me something that to this day stuck with me. And he said, look, I understand where you're coming from, but see it this way. You don't want to study 7 days a week, and here's why. You don't want to burn yourself out in the process to becoming a software engineer. The last thing that you want to do is burn yourself to a point that by the time you finally reach the goal that you are trying to achieve, you're already burnt out. So don't see it as you're not doing anything. See it as taking time for yourself to take care of your mental health. Another struggle of mine has been learning JavaScript. JavaScript has been this massive hill to climb, and maybe I'm too tough on myself. Maybe I need to show myself a little bit more compassion, but I really thought by now, 6 months in, I would feel more comfortable writing JavaScript. And it's frustrating to me still that sometimes I want to start writing a function or some JavaScript code and my brain just goes blank. I just get like an error code. And don't get me wrong, I can read a code and I can do it, but I don't know, I just feel that it's just the weakest part of my current tech stack. Everything else like made sense for me, but JavaScript has been so tough on me. So I don't want you guys to think that I have everything figured out. And again, maybe I'm being too tough on myself, but JavaScript so far has been the toughest part of this entire journey. Another challenge that I'm facing is more mental than anything else, and is this anxiety that I have of once I'm done with this process of studying, am I going to be able to find a job? I gave myself a year to study full stack development, and once I'm done, that's when I'm going to start the process of looking for a role as a junior software developer. But I'm not going to lie to you. Seeing all these layoffs, and man, it's every week there's a company dropping software engineers, and I go to the meetups and it's always the same conversation. I just got laid off, or I've been out of the workforce for 6 to 8 months, and I'll be lying to you if I tell you that it's scary. I'm very frightened, and that's why I'm putting so much work and so many hours into this, so I can be as employable as possible, and hopefully I earn an opportunity as a junior developer. But right now the market is very tough for juniors, and everybody as a whole is struggling. So I'm working as hard as possible, but yeah, thinking about it every day. Am I going to be able to find a job? Is one of those things that I'm always battling every day. Now, even though I feel nervous and anxious, I still get up every day and I'm still motivated because I'm not a quitter. I'm someone that if I fall, I get back up. And I refuse to let myself down, but I refuse to let my wife down. And the sacrifice that she's making, going to work to make sure that I'm able to come here, sit down every day and study. So even though I'm nervous and I'm anxious, that's out the window. I got too much pride and I got too much to strive for. So that's one of the things that keeps me very motivated every day. I think about my wife and everything that she's doing for me, to make this happen. So I'm not quitting, I'm not stopping, and you know what? I'm going to do whatever it takes, learn whatever is needed in order for me to make this happen and become a software engineer, because I refuse to fail. Another thing that I decided to do to hold myself accountable and to stay motivated was to start blogging my journey. So I decided to create a series called Coding My Way In, The Road to Becoming a Software Engineer. And basically what I do every week, I give an update on what I learned or what I did that week. So every week I post a blog, and it's not edited, it's straight raw footage. I literally just sit down and record my screen, and I just start talking, and I try to keep every video 15 minutes or less, and it's just giving you a recap on what I did that week. The last two things that I do to stay motivated and take care of myself, the first one being going to the gym. I cannot recommend this enough. Being active helps you so much mentally. Remember, healthy body, healthy mind. And you'll see it with a lot of people that sit down all day and then they have issues falling asleep. Yes, you might return home from work feeling tired, but you are mentally tired. Not physically, because you didn't do anything physical all day. So I recommend this to anyone. Go to the gym. It will help you tremendously. Now, if you cannot go to the gym, that's okay. You can work out at home. You can go for a jog around the house. But just make sure you stay active. Trust me, it will help you even with your sleeping schedule. So I used to have anxiety issues falling asleep, and ever since I started working out, it disappeared. Now every night I fall asleep like a baby. The last thing that I do to help myself stay motivated and take care of myself is connected to my study schedule. Remember that I said that I don't study on weekends? Well, I don't. But what I do is on weekends I go out. So it really doesn't matter where I go. I can go to the mall, I can go to a restaurant, go out for a hike. It really doesn't matter. I just make sure that I leave the house, because staying indoors for so many hours is not healthy, and it usually backfires on people. So my recommendation to anyone having a strong study schedule, I understand it's important to study, but also make sure to go out and touch grass. So if you have made it this far in the video, I want to say thank you so much for sitting down and actually watching this video. It means a lot, and I kept my promise. The video was not going to be heavily edited. So what's next? That's the question. So basically my goal is still the same. Still I'm going to keep studying, going to meetups, but there are things that I want to accomplish this year. So I didn't mention that I have a goal of 3 projects this year. So instead of making and working on different projects like 5 or 6, I decided to minimize and simplify things and just do 3 projects this year. Each project has to be more difficult and different than the one before. So I'm already done with my first project. I'm already preparing for the next one. And there are technologies that I really want to learn for my next project, and I want to learn Next.js and I want to learn MongoDB. I want to learn Next.js because I see a lot of companies hiring for it, because it's a framework that is for server side, but it's built on top of React. So if you already have an idea of React, the transition is a lot smoother on learning Next.js. So MongoDB, the reason I want to learn MongoDB is because the current database that I learned is called Postgres, which is a SQL database. So Mongo is completely different than the one that I just learned. So I just want to have in my arsenal 2 completely different databases. This way, when someone asks which one is better or where one is better than the other when it comes down to implementation, I can have an informative opinion. So that's the goal. My next project, I want to learn Next.js and MongoDB so I can have it in my arsenal and on my tech stack. And there are more things that I want to learn. I want to learn TypeScript. I want to dive into the world of AWS. And lastly, I really want to learn Python. But TypeScript, AWS, Python, I think these are going to be 3 things that I'm going to learn for next year. So for now, I'm just going to focus on JavaScript so I can really make sure I understand what I'm doing. And lastly, I really want to start doing leak code problems. I find them like very cool, and I need to find the time to start learning. I'm not gonna go too crazy on hard problems. I just want to start very basic and just dive into this world of problem solving with code. So yeah, that's my goal for so far. I want to make projects, learn more technologies, get into the world of lead code, and yeah, just keep learning, keep evolving, and hopefully I'll be in the right path to completing my journey of becoming a software engineer. Thank you for watching.